I think that like there's an argument that everybody says that, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody else using AI is going to take your job. And I don't think that's true, really. I mean, it's sort of true, but not really. What's actually going to happen is a group of people are going to get together who are partnering with the AI systems as if they are other workers, right? And they're going to either build a business or revolutionize a business that is related to your work or the business or industry you're in. And they're going to disrupt that industry, and that's how you're going to lose your job.
So Matt Rouse, host of the Digital Marketing Masters podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on Podcast Junkies.
Hey, thanks, Harry, for having me on.
Also, I should have added to your title, Chicken Wrangler Extraordinaire.
That's right. The AI Chicken Wrangler. That's been starting to stick for the last couple of years.
As someone who's relocated from New York, then to LA, and now end up in Minnesota, and now have 7 chickens myself, I can
Oh,
relate to
nice.
that journey.
What kind of chickens do you have?
A couple of Buff Orpingtons, Americanas. They're cold weather gals. We get to -20 down here, so they made it to their first
Oh,
winter
yeah.
already. So it's what?
Good,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I got a bunch of Orpingtons too.
What's your favorite chicken name? I'm assuming they're all named, or some of them.
They're pretty much all named. I've got a giant lavender Orpington rooster named Big Hero, who's all gray, like the Big Hero movie character who's a robot.
Nice.
So I thought that was kind of on the AI track.
Yeah, I don't know what the experience has been like for you, but as a former city guy who now we're planting our own garden and we've got the chickens and some light homesteading, it's been a shift, but a much deeper appreciation for where food comes from and growing your own food as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, we used to live just outside of Portland,
okay.
Oregon, and now we live in Nova Scotia.
Mm,
So we went from a town of several million to a town of 500,
yeah,
and we have more chickens than people.
they're fun once you get used to them. Also want to give a shout out to Ben Albert who made the introduction. I've had a lot of great conversations with people who have come his way and then connected with him previously.
Yeah, Ben's great. And I actually met Ben at an event in Las Vegas for digital. It was like the last digital marketer event.
Okay. Is that the one that was in San Diego?
It used to be in
Yeah.
San Diego. They moved it to Las Vegas after Cvent took it
Okay.
over.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
And yeah, no, they don't have them anymore. So
Yeah.
actually, they don't have that. They canceled that conference last year, and then this year the CEX, the Content
Yeah.
Entrepreneur Expo in Cleveland, was the last one
Oh,
also.
wow.
So 2 of my 3 conferences a year that I go to are gone now. So I don't
You'll need
know
another reason,
what to do with myself these
another
days.
reason to get out of the house. So I was digging into a bit of the work, the prolific work you've done. What stood out for me was these 15 predictions you made about AI in your first book, and the fact that 13 of them came true. So that's just either remarkable foresight or you figured something out that most people are missing. And I was really curious. Obviously, AI is on top of everyone's mind now. You've talked about the death of social entertainment and this real threat of job displacement. So what would you say is the number one trend most business owners are completely blind to right now and that'll happen in the next 12 months?
Oh, that is a tough one. If it's going to be the next 12 months, I would say the biggest thing is not reevaluating the time you're spending on marketing.
Hmm.
Because, in the Puretainment book, it wasn't the death of social media. It was the death of everyone being on the same handful of platforms
Yeah.
of social media, right? So the separation there is that social media has completely fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fragmented by things that people don't expect, right? Like by hobby is one option, right? So people who are super into like a specific hobby will gravitate towards a social media platform where other people of that hobby are on.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult for you to figure out if you're a business owner,
Yeah.
right? The other thing is there's so many platforms, you can't possibly know them all,
Yeah.
right? And some of them are super confusing, honestly, right? Like you go to somebody who has basically no, digital marketing experience and you tell them you need to build an audience on Discord, they're going to think you're crazy,
Yeah.
right? And they've never even heard of it, let alone open it up.
Yeah.
Like I know how to use Discord. I've been on it for 6 years. I barely use it, because I can't figure out how to get all the messages and stuff to everyone. It always takes, I have to like relearn it every time I go in
Same
there,
here, yeah.
or you tell somebody to use Reddit who's never used it before. And, the first thing they do is go, I'm Bob and I have a HVAC company, and everybody downvotes their stuff, and then their post gets banned,
That's funny.
So anyways, yeah, I think the blind spot is that social media is fragmented. The things they used to do that worked are diminishing returns that take more effort. So they're spending more time to get less result. So what you have to do is reevaluate where you're spending your time and try and figure out where is the audience that you need to talk to. And if, in a lot of cases, kind of generic social media may not be the thing for you to do anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like, you talked about this idea that we've left traditional social media behind. And as a business owner, or a B2B service company or a local restaurant, what can they actually do differently starting tomorrow, given what you just said?
So the most difficult part with that is that the easy answer to everything is it depends. Right? It's like a big sticker you can just slap on there and say, it depends. But the problem is it does depend. It depends on what type of business you are, right? If I am a local service business and I have a service area or a physical location, the best thing you can do for your business is spend as much time and effort on local marketing as you can.
Yeah.
Trying to do social media where you've got a following of who knows who from who knows where is very, it's very difficult to get traction in that way. Partnering with other people who have a local following is a great way to do social media in those cases. But if you're a business who's, say, maybe you have a specific niche product or a direct-to-consumer, direct B2B product that's for a niche, but they're not in a localized area, then you're really going to want to try and drill down on audience research to say, where are the people in my industry and where do they spend time online? And that's where you want to spend all of your time. Also, using advertising platforms, they are getting more expensive as time goes on, but they are still an excellent way to reach your target audience, especially if you can use the targeting system properly to get them, or you have an agency or something who can help you do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big challenge for local business owners who have to think differently than, the traditional magazine ad or newspaper ad that worked probably 30 or 40 years ago. And it's like business owners now and small business owners have to wear so many different hats. And now it's this idea of like people becoming creators, which you've mentioned as well, and home studios taking over. And I think you even touched on how these are being watched more than just traditional studio, like big studio TV shows.
By a long shot. Like, it's not even in the same neighborhood anymore. And if you look at, here's a recent example. I don't know how old your kids are, if you have kids.
No kids, but I'm 55.
All right, well, my daughter's 9, and, I'm 52. But almost every, preteen to, 12 or 13-year-old, basically in North America right now, is putting the number 67 everywhere that they go on everything, and they're saying it all the time, and nobody knows what it's about. And what it's about is a viral video that was targeted specifically around kids, because kids like that type of video, where they just say 6, 7 in the video, and so all the kids are repeating it and they're saying it. And I'm seeing, I saw a post on LinkedIn where somebody's some kid wrote the number 6, 7 on the path in my garden, and I don't know what it means. Nobody knows what that means, right? But that's the thing, is that it's so hard to keep up with any of the things that are going on in social media. But when it comes to regular television, that one video has been seen more than every single television show that's on TV right now combined.
Wild.
And it's only been in a few days.
The speed with which
the virality is still,
the speed with which this stuff takes off, it's crazy. And like you said, it could be the most innocuous thing that someone decided was a trend. Some 12 or 13-year-old
Right.
decided it was a trend, and now it's like millions and billions of. And as anyone who's even 5 years older plus than them, you're completely like in the dark. You have no idea what they're talking about. It's like another
Right.
language.
Well, and people don't even know what the language
Yeah.
is, right? That kids are using. I think one of the things that I find interesting is language that used to be used kind of around Gen X time, saying like, oh, that's sick,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff has really started to be used again by younger people, like especially ones who are like 20 and under,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They're like, oh, that's so sick, it's gross, that kind of stuff. And so sometimes there's terminology changes. And I remember my parents when I was a kid, they were like, why would you want something to be sick? That's disgusting, you know? And so, I mean, there's also this kind of gap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where you have the knowledge of your business and who your business is for, but you don't need to know what 12-year-olds are talking about right now, unless you sell something for 12-year-olds,
Sure.
right? Like that's uncommon, right? For most of us.
Yeah.
So I think you really need to speak the language of your customer, and you need to identify where and what they're doing, and remember that you are not your customer, right? So your opinion of what is a good place to go on social is not
Yeah.
the choice. The choice is where my customer goes.
What has that journey been like for you as someone who's in marketing and doing your best to have your finger on the pulse? And obviously with AI, it seems like you definitely were ahead of the trend there. Do you search different sources? Do you have different people you follow? You can't be following mainstream stuff because obviously they're usually way behind the curve.
Right.
So what do you do to stay ahead for trends like this, or to see things that are coming that are going to be in the zeitgeist, 5 years from now?
It's difficult, right? I mean, you kind of have to do a lot of research. And you could get signed up to a lot of different newsletters of different groups. And I do a lot of networking, with other agency owners, but also business owners. And then I have my own clients, right? Which I have a marketing agency in the US and one in Canada.
Okay.
So I have lots of business owners that I can talk to on a regular basis. And, my daughter's young, so I get to see if we do some volunteering with they just did Alice Through the Looking Glass at our community theater. And so we got to do some promotions for that. And we get to talk to all the kids and stuff. And so you kind of, soak it in a little from everywhere. My favorite place is probably the feed on Reddit, just the popular feed.
Yeah.
I also, in kind of my spare time, let's quote spare time, I make Roblox games.
Okay.
So we made a game my daughter and I worked on called Pug Finder.
Yeah.
You just find these little pug dogs all around the map.
Yeah.
And, you go in the Roblox forum and the average age of a person there is probably 16, and they're all using the language that they use now. And it's not like a live forum. It's just like a posting,
Yeah.
Developer posting. People are posting, clips of, this is the game that I built, or, this is the code I used to make the ball turn red and shiny, and that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, and then, somebody else is like, that's sick. Or whatever it is, right? Whatever the language that they're using around it. Also, my daughter likes to watch YouTube, and I prefer that she watches long form YouTube over I don't let her use any other social media or anything. We try to keep her off of YouTube Shorts, and because technically, look up the effect of short video on, people's growing brains, and you'll find out that it's not a great idea. So anyway, but I like to watch what she's watching and see what it is, and, talk to her about it and stuff like that.
What's been the biggest shift in your life when you became a dad?
Well, I mean, it's tough because I used to live in basically an all adult world.
Yeah.
Right? I played a billiard pool league where we'd play at bars on Wednesday night. We would stay out late at night and not get up early in the morning. And, because also I worked on the West Coast, so most of my clients were ahead, time wise. Yeah. And it's just, it was going from that completely adult world to a world that has to include children, which wasn't something I knew people who had kids, but we didn't hang around with them with their kids, And then, yeah, we started to like, meet other families in our neighborhood and stuff who had children. And, you meet the parents of other kids from school and stuff like that. And so it's really a pretty big change of the people you're interacting with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And also understanding what it's like to be a kid again, but also trying to make decisions around what you think is going to be good for a child in the near future with very little control over what the future is going to bring.
The world we live in right now is so different from ours growing up, and just the idea of having Facebook on all the time when I was like a teenager in my early 20s is
Right.
just like a horror show to even think of how that would have turned out. So I feel like the challenges of being a kid now, and I grew up in the club culture. I would go to see DJs, and you see old pictures of people in the club, they're just listening to the DJ. Now it's just everyone's got their phone up and it's like,
Right.
and no one's dancing. It's like we just live in a completely different world that's always, I feel like it's always online all the time.
Well, I mentioned in the AI Take My Job
Yeah.
that there has never been a time in my child's life when she talked to a piece of electronics and it didn't either answer her or understand what she was saying. Never.
Oh,
right?
oh.
Since she's been able to remember, AI has been a thing that's in daily life.
That's crazy.
Right? I remember when you didn't even have graphics on computers. Right?
DOS prompt.
You're like using your DOS prompt. It's just like a flashing green C, and your monitor was 17-inch monitor, weighed like 200 pounds, and took up your whole desk. And I was typing in software from the back of Compute magazines when I was 10,
What was your earliest computer? Your first computer?
I had an Atari 800,
Okay.
which is an 8-bit.
Yeah.
Had 16 kilobytes of RAM.
And that dial-up modem. I had a tape recorder as a hard drive. I think my first one was like a
Tape drive.
Texas Instruments.
Right? Oh, you had the TI, like the TRS-80?
Yes, it was one of those. And then a Tandy 1000,
Nice.
I think shortly after.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Tandy's a good one. Yeah, I have. You know what? We were talking about my shirt, my Dungeons and Dragons shirt, right?
Yeah.
And I said I collected old Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I have the original Dungeons and Dragons game from Intellivision. If you remember the Intellivision.
Intellivision. That's right.
It had like the giant console and it had the paddles on it, like the little turn paddles on them.
Was
They had these little
Intellivision
plastic cards you'd slide into the buttons.
Oh, that's right. Was Intellivision the one with
Yeah, it was
Night
like
Driver?
ColecoVision.
Night Driver with the little
Yep. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the Moore's law is that computing power basically doubles every 18 months. And that's been around, forever, right? Since like it's been happening arguably, I mean, maybe not exactly 18 months, but arguably since the first kind of computers that were using like vacuum tubes and stuff, like way, way back before I was born, right? And the amount of computing power that has kind of come out since then is, I forget the exact number. It's like it's a number so ridiculous that you don't even remember how it is. It's like somebody saying a bazillion zillion,
Yeah.
It's something like 100,000 trillion more computing power than was around then, right? It's just some ridiculous number that I can't remember. And AI doubles in power, arguably, because nobody has a metric to say if an AI is more productive than a previous one. You can argue around how many parameters it has, how much memory it has, what tests it can do. They have to keep coming up with new tests because it keeps passing all the old tests. So you can't use the same test to measure it as the last one, right? But arguably, it improves doubles in ability every 7 months.
Wow.
So that means it's Moore's law, but more than twice as fast. And then you also have another kind of odd thing, and that's that our kind of human brains are linear, right? They're not exponential because you would never see like, a cheetah on the savannah or whatever running and increasing its speed, getting halfway across the horizon and then disappearing because it was exponentially fast, right? So your brain doesn't understand how exponential progress works. You kind of have to force yourself to understand it. But when two exponential technologies are combined,
Mhm.
you get what's called hyperexponential, right? So it doesn't double, it quadruples.
Wow.
So, and then if you had a technology that doubles, it would be double the first 7 months, quadruple the next 7 months. But this would be 4 times the first 7 months, and then 8 times the next, and then 16 times, right? And so you look at that with something like autonomous robots.
Mhm.
Robotics and the speed of research and automation in robotics is doubling at a rate that I don't know if anyone has a measurement for it at this point. But you combine that with the doubling of computer power 18 months and the doubling of AI every 7 months. And let's say robotics is 18 months, just like computers.
Yeah.
That means every year and a half, your robot is somewhere between 4 and 12 times better than it was the previous year and a half. Right. And that's why now there's household robots that can sort of do your laundry and dishes,
Saw that.
under certain circumstances. And maybe they can help out a little bit in the warehouse. But 18 months ago, the thing couldn't walk up a stair. Right. So, yeah, you get this kind of hyper exponential thing.
Those Boston Robotics videos are a bit scary and creepy every time I see one. It's just like,
Right.
especially the humans pushing them down. I'm like, why are you antagonizing the robot and
Yeah.
knocking them over
And then
running through the field? It's pretty wild.
at least wear a mask or something so that future robots can go back and look at it.
That's why I always say please in my chat prompts. For some reason, I can't stop doing that because I'm like,
That's right.
they take over. At least they'll recognize that I was one of the polite ones, one of the polite humans.
And also, arguably, it works better if you do that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't have there's no scientific evidence behind this, but I think if you give it a persona and a name and you use it like you would with a regular person,
Yeah.
that it kind of gives this, it's the idea of instead of AI being used as a tool, that AI is a partner in the work you're trying to do.
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe you're just better at explaining it if you kind of anthropomorphize it a bit, right? Maybe, I don't know, but I find it works. And I think that, like, there's an argument that everybody says that, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody else using AI is going to take your job. And I don't think that's true, really. I mean, it's sort of true, but not really. What's actually going to happen is a group of people are going to get together who are partnering with the AI systems as if they are other workers, right? And they're going to either build a business or revolutionize a business that is related to your work or the business or industry you're in. And they're going to disrupt that industry, and that's how you're going to lose your job.
I see that a lot, especially at the pace of truth stuff is being developed. Even this new browser war we have, AI browser wars. I think I've seen like
Right.
6 or 7 AI browsers show up in like the past 2 weeks, and they're all like exponentially better than the previous one.
An Atlas just came
Yeah.
out. It's only on iOS right now.
There's a new one called Strawberry browser. I don't know if you've seen that one. They're
Yeah.
doing some pretty interesting work.
Strawberry, Perplexity's got
Yeah.
one.
So you mentioned this term cascade failure in job markets. Can you define what that means?
Sure.
And as I'm curious, as one sector gets automated, how that domino effect actually works.
So cascade job failure is the idea that once AI systems get to a point where they can replicate, the majority of work for a certain industry, what happens is most of the people in that industry get laid off. Not everyone, but most of them do. So you get a few companies that come out and they say, well, we're AI first now or whatever, right? And they start laying off some people. Those people go out and they try and find a job, but they can't get a job in their industry because no one else is hiring for that now because they're also already planning to lay off everybody, right?
Yeah.
Or at least some of that staff. And so those people start to go to related industries. But because the AI is already good at this, somebody helps make the AI better for the related industry. And now that industry is starting to lay off people too. And so all these industries start laying off people, and everybody with the similar skill set is now looking for a job and can't find one because nobody's hiring for that skill set because the AI can do it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happens is those people aren't spending, they're not going to work, they're not going to the office. So now I don't need HR people, right? Because I don't have any human staff in that department. So I don't need the HR for that department. I don't need legal for that department either because I don't have those people to worry about anymore. Now I don't need as many janitors. I don't need as much floor space. I don't need as much office space. The, the hairdresser and the cafe downstairs and the coffee shop and the magazine store, they all closed down because there's nobody in the office building anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't need as many parking attendants. I don't need as many gas station attendants. I don't know, whatever, right? All those services that are built around these people start to fall as well. And as those all start to fall, these people, you can't just get retrained to do something complex enough that it will be something that an AI system won't be able to already do at that point.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is, like, back in the day, everybody used to have a piano. If you wanted to entertain people with music in your house, you got to have a piano because they didn't have CD players. They didn't have streaming, like that stuff didn't exist till the gramophone comes along.
Yeah.
All the factory workers from the piano factory could just pack up, go across the street, get a job at the factory making the gramophone because you could retrain them in a day, off to the races, right? You're not retraining people who are, middle management at information or knowledge work companies to become roboticists, overnight, right? It could take 4 to 6 years to train somebody. And in that time, the AI is already going to be better at that than you're going to be by the time you get trained. So this is the failure side. And now I know it sounds alarming, but this is like a worst case scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that I think could happen is similar to kind of what happened with the rise of the internet is when the internet was just bulletin board systems and Usenet and it wasn't that useful for people. There was no World Wide Web yet. No one could have looked at that and said, you know what? You should go start training as a web developer, right?
Yeah.
Or a Python programmer or something, right? Like it just didn't exist as a thing.
Yeah.
And so all these jobs that came out from the rise of the internet, nobody knew that that was going to be a thing because nobody hadn't even invented the web browser yet, right? And the application layer that lays on top of the internet is where all the job creation came from.
Yeah.
So that's your Airbnbs and your Uber and, Salesforce and Microsoft and all of these companies, everybody that does all these things, that all came from the application layer of the internet.
Yeah.
And if the internet didn't exist, they couldn't have got all the training data to train the AI we have now.
That's true.
And so you don't know what the next thing's going to be, but you can sort of have some idea because you can see some trending to where some things are going. And I think for sure, it's easy to see where things are going to go badly for some industries.
Yeah.
If you want an example,
Yes.
go look at the language translation industry. Right? 3 years ago, I had a lady tell me that no computer system can translate like a human because they don't understand the nuance of language. And her business is bankrupt now.
Oof.
And I don't mean to be light on that. I feel bad for her. And the translation industry in general is down somewhere in the neighborhood of 90%. So that's almost an entire industry being wiped out. That's more than the amount of taxis that were wiped out by ride sharing. And that's in an industry, and in like 2 years, gone, right?
How do you, given everything you just said, how do you have a conversation with your child about where to plan for the future or plan for what they want to do?
I think you need to make a decision of if you're going to kind of train or teach your children about how to use current AI systems. And I am on the side of, I think she needs exposure to it and needs to know what it does and how it works. But also have a foot in the real world kind of thing. And, my kid goes to dance and theater and she gardens and she takes care of chickens and takes care of the cats and the dog and, that kind of stuff. She plays outside all the time, so I think you need a kind of a balance, right?
Yeah.
But I also think if you're not training kids now on how to at least be aware of and how to talk to and how to work with basic AI systems, that there is going to be essentially no way for them to be in what the future economy is going to be.
Mm.
Now, there's also another positive thing that could come out of all this. Is one thing which I'm a huge fan of. I don't want people to get the idea that it's all doom and gloom, but I also don't want people to get the idea that because I use AI and I like a bunch of AI systems that I use, doesn't mean that I like everything about AI,
Sure.
right? The pendulum always kind of swings both ways. So the more things are fake, the more people are going to want and pay for things that are real,
Yeah.
right? And I think if we can come out with some sort of universal basic income, sometimes called big basic income guarantee, pilot programs of UBI all over the world that have happened for the last decades have all had positive results. And it saves countries and companies or whoever it is that's running the pilot program. It always saves them money.
Yeah.
And it never has the effect that the naysayers say is going to happen, right? They're like, I don't want to pay somebody else to work, but it turns out that like if you give homeless people money instead of like you selecting what they should have the money for, everybody says they're going to go spend it on drugs. Well, it turns out they don't, right?
Yeah.
Some of them might,
Yeah.
but overall, it becomes cheaper for them to get a better result. And if you give money to new mothers, it reduces childhood poverty, right? It reduces ER visits. So here's what happens. Let's say bad stuff happens. Everybody starts to lose their job and you've got no universal basic income. Then we saw what happens in COVID, right?
Yeah.
The economy goes into the toilet.
Yep.
It crashes. Companies start going broke. And then the government steps in and starts writing checks. Well, writing checks is universal basic income, right? If they'd have just done that from the start, right,
Yeah.
then it wouldn't have been a problem and the economy wouldn't have crashed.
Yeah.
And it costs way more to fix a crashed economy than it does to let one putter along while you hand out money, right?
Yeah.
Because all these bailouts and everything cost billions and billions of dollars, and they could have just given people the money in the first place and saved the bailout, right?
It's shocking how inefficient government is. It's just some of the basic necessities in life, and even things like universal basic income, like you said, if they had just started there, they would have spent less rather
Right.
than trying to fix everything after the fact.
And you could also, like universal basic income, the idea of it being universal is just that, it's universal.
Yes.
So you don't have to give universal basic income to people who make over a certain amount,
Mhm.
but it's cheaper to just give it to everyone, right? And then if somebody makes over a certain amount a year, you tax them that amount. And so you get the money back anyway. So who cares, right? But there's ways to do it. I'm not an expert in that neighborhood, but I think that there is going to be a gap between when people start to get laid off from jobs, especially ones that people don't expect layoffs to come from because of combined technologies like robotics. There's going to be a gap between that and when either basic income starts to become available to everyone or when sort of a new economy comes out. And I think that dip, it could be severe.
Yeah.
I think it could be 6 to 12 months of, 40% unemployment, could be 50, 60, 70% youth unemployment. Those are serious numbers. And, I'm not even on the most serious end. If you listen to, some of the AI security folks, they talk about things like 96% unemployment,
Wow.
which is basically everyone.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's a lot of people are like, well, what if we just give people money and then they don't work? Well, do we need them to work? Like, how many jobs are non-jobs right now, for one thing,
Oh, yeah.
right? That anybody can do. They're just like make work projects. It's like the law in Oregon where we used to live where you're not allowed to pump your own gas. Sure, unemployment's down, but you got all these people whose job is just to walk out and pump gas and walk back in and stare at their phone all day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We don't need it. Well, a robot could pump my gas. I'm okay with it, And if you're an artist or something, why can't we just pay people to be artists? What's so bad about that,
Yeah.
right? Does an artist have to work part-time at a coffee shop to be able to pay their rent? Or can they just be really good at, singing and playing piano or something, right? Or being a painter? Go ahead, be an artist. I think it's a great idea. I would love for us to pay artists.
And that money makes its way back into the economy anyway. I mean, because they have
That's
to
right,
go
you're gonna
buy
spend
things.
it all.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's what people lose sight of.
And then if you want to work, go work.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the way I think about it anyway. I think there's an option here of we could use AI systems and the productivity gains and things we get from it to basically release like the average person from the struggle of having to work to survive.
Yeah.
To the point of working because they're trying to make something, they're an entrepreneur, they want to make the world better, whatever it is, or doing the things that they want to do, or spending, through the first 3 or 4 years of their kid's life with their kid instead of having to go and, slug it out at 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's difficult because that would take a very big shift in how kind of government and economic systems work. But it could be, a golden age of humanity. It also could be very serious. There could be serious problems where there's autonomous robots and, forces like military or police autonomous robots that are controlled by whoever the person running that government or that system are. And there could be serious problems with oppression and, freedoms and things like that. So that's also a danger. And we don't want that to happen either.
Yeah.
But that could happen without AI, right? We don't need that. We don't need AI for that to be bad.
Yeah. It feels like we're in a sliding doors moment, or shifting timelines, whatever the phrase you want to use. Like we're either going to take one of two directions, and one's going to be like this golden age of humanity where we realize like, we don't have to succumb to this, Rockefeller age, Carnegie age, stick everyone in a factory, sticking everyone in school, to produce more factory workers, and just like everyone has to have a 9-to-5 job instead of a desk. And to your point,
we're almost out of that now, right? Like how many factory workers do you know?
Not many.
None.
Amazon workers, I guess.
I know a few.
Yeah.
Well, Amazon just came out with a new robotics system for their plants. And there was an article actually just before my book came out. I had to go back and edit one of the chapters of my book 2 days before the book came out because Amazon announced that they had 1 million robots in factories in the United States. 1 million robots, right? And people are like, robots are going to take our jobs. And I'm like, there's already 1 million. And that's only one company, right?
Wow.
So if you can imagine all the other kinds of manufacturing and all the other plants and all the other systems and all the delivery companies and everything who have robots, there's got to be at least 3 million robots working in the United States. That's 1% of the entire country. And that doesn't even count the amount of people who can't work, right? Because you got people who are retired, people who are disability, Medicaid, whatever, people who are children, right? All those people can't work. So you probably got 2 or 3% of all the jobs are already being done by robots. And this is a common question that I have with people and I wouldn't even say it's a question. It's more like a statement. They like to come up to me and say, well, I can't do my job. And I go, oh, really? What's your job, right? And they explain it. And I say, well, you know what? You're right. AI can't do that job. But what about an AI on the computer and a robot at the office, or the warehouse? And they're like, oh, right? Because it's still cheaper to have an AI and a robot than it is to hire a person. And the other thing about robots, and this is something, and I don't mean to talk the whole time about robots because I know my book is about AI, but it is also about robots.
Yeah.
The thing about robots is you have reinforcement learning, right? So we can simulate an environment inside the computer brain of the robot where it thinks it's in a real world environment, but it's in a simulated environment.
Yeah.
And we make it do the dishes 100 million times.
Yeah.
And each time there's different variations, different colors, different sinks, different water temperatures, you name it. You change every variable you can a bunch of times. And once it's got it figured out, it's like, I know how to do dishes. Then all you do is you upload that program to all the other robots.
Yeah.
So now all the robots know how to do dishes, right? So if you're like, my company has specific things that we do at my company that are very, very specific and only we know how to do it. Okay, well, you show somebody like you would show a new employee, right? I think the chapter in my book's called Robot See, Robot Do. So you physically move the hands of the
Yeah.
robot, or you have it watch you while you do it, right? And it starts to learn, and you go through some training time. And once it's got it down, it transfers that program to all the other robots. And now every robot in your company can do that task.
Yep.
Whereas if you're training people, even if you're doing like train the trainer, or you're doing training seminars or training videos or whatever, it takes time. You got to pay them. You got to do all that stuff, right? But a robot, you just upload the program to the new robot and off you go, right? So, and I'm not saying robots are better than people, but at some things they are,
Yeah.
right? And imagine robots doing very dangerous tasks.
Of course.
Which is great, right? Because we don't want to die putting out a fire, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't have firefighters, but I'd rather have a robot run into a burning building than a live human.
Yeah.
You know? So the other thing is considering things like helper robots for like tradespeople. I saw a video a couple months back of a roofing robot, and it only takes one person to run the roofing robot, and it can roof the entire roof. It's basically set up like a 3D printer.
Yeah.
And it's got a big cartridge full of shingles, and it looks at where the last shingle was on the roof. It kind of looks down with a camera, and it sees where to put the shingle, and it perfectly aligns the shingle, and a little nail gun goes in and goes chunk, 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 chunk. And then little gears grind, and it moves down to the next one. And it can roof, a large house in a single day.
And doesn't care what the weather is.
And then, right. And the roofer, right, the person who's the tradesperson, they just, the edging around the chimney, or, putting the very pinpoint on and moving the robot and stuff like that. That's what his job is. And now he can get a roof done. He doesn't have to have a team of roofers. And the question is, does that business owner now lay off their team of 5 other roofers that they were going to have to do that job? Or do they go out and do 6 roofs?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I would say you should go out and do 6 roofs, because all you get to keep your job. You just have 6 roofing robots, right? You all learn how to use the robot. You finish your task. It does its tasks. You make 6 times as much money.
Yeah.
The downfall is somebody else doesn't have a roofing robot, right? And their company goes broke. It's because they can't compete, because they can't compete on price and they can't compete on speed.
There's so many innovations like that happening in hundreds, if not thousands, of industries. If you just stop and think about it, and I'm sure a lot of them you cover yourself. And I think, it does sound like doom and gloom for people, especially people in business who can see the writing on the wall, see where this is headed. But I think having your head in the ground and thinking that it's not coming for you, or it's not going to impact you, and it's, or you're going to, just retire. Maybe you're going to retire before it's impacting you.
Right.
But to think that it's not going to affect you and not look at this in a way that's with some sort of intelligence and foresight, I think is just really harmful, especially if, your business is your livelihood. And I guess, you're not going to be able to wait for universal basic income, and that could be part of the solution. But I think it's really just, I remember when ChatGPT, I guess the 3 or 3.5 came out, which is the big one that everyone was talking about. And I immediately thought the best skill to have is going to be able to talk to robots, and just how to figure out, and whatever variation of that, whether it's robots or AI or something like that, like you have to learn how to communicate and get what you need out of them. And I think, and what we've seen is the people who understand how to use these tools are starting to have a leg up on this, on folks like this. But what I'm noticing in your conversation, in your tone, is you do have I know that you're rooting for Team Human here.
Right.
And you do have this, I feel like, this sense of wanting to do good for people and ensuring that people have I'm sure it's the tone in your books is also to kind of give people a picture to what's possible and what they should be looking out for. Who influences or has influenced you in terms of this philosophy of life and how to think about and care for other people?
Well, it's kind of a difficult question, because, I don't have the insight of, specifically around AI,
Yeah.
like who's building the models and things like that. I don't have any access to those people.
Yeah.
I personally think my book, the first Will AI Take My Job, the first one, the reason that I wrote the book was because I started doing research for my own company, and I looked at it and I said, oh my God, we got a serious problem.
Yeah.
5 years, my company's out of business.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not completely, but basically. And I was like, if we don't shift now, then by the time we figure out what to do later, it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
So we have to begin the process of shifting. And even if we got to redirect the car kind of thing, we got to start driving the car while we're building it now. And by the time we get there, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want somebody to bury their head in the sand and say, oh, that's cool, or underestimate it and say, well, Chat GPT 3.5 couldn't write, a good blog article, so AI is stupid and I'm not going to use it.
Yeah.
Not realizing that, we're probably 6 months away from GPT 5.5 or 6 or whatever the next generation is,
Sure.
which is probably going to be 16 times smarter than 3.5 was. And if you look at industries, there is no industry that's going to be untouched.
Of course.
Right? There is industries where you are more likely to not have to have any kind of, issue, I guess, because there's a combination of what are the people who make the AIs good at, for starters. That's why all your AI systems are really good at math, really good at kind of science problems and programming, because the people who work there are engineers, mathematicians, and programmers. And they also have verifiable results. So if I have a program, I need it to do X, it doesn't do X, I can test it. If it doesn't do it, I know it didn't do it, right? Same with math problem. If it gets the math problem wrong, I know it didn't do the right thing. But if you look at other industries, like, let's say hairdresser is a good example. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a hairdresser. I'm not saying that there's not enough money in hairdressing. I'm saying for the average company to take the liability of sticking a pair of scissors in the hands of a robot and putting it by somebody's eyes or their ears is not worth the response. Like, it's not worth the return on investment.
Sure.
It's a complicated task for a robot, right? People are moving their heads around and stuff, right? There's a social component. There's all this stuff to it, right? It's actually a very complicated task to get a haircut, right? But doing legal research is not as complicated of a task and pays about 3 to 6 times as much. So the AI companies are going to go after those tasks before they go after a hairdresser, right?
Makes a lot of sense.
So you kind of need to look at that for your industry. Is it worth it for them to come for your industry, for one thing, because of a number of factors? But another thing is that, like I said, where, like Uber and Lyft came to town, but there's still taxis, right? You don't always get rid of everyone in an industry. So even if you are a customer service agent, if you're the customer service agent who knows how to work with the AI system, knows how to input the data that it uses to, come up with the answers, and also you handle the weird edge cases, like if you're the guy in the call center where they're like, no one knows how to fix this, and you're like, I'll do it, you're still going to have a job. But everybody else is going to get laid off, right? Because the AI system can answer 1 million simultaneous calls, however many it is that are coming in at the same time with a 5-second or less wait time. And it knows where their order is. It knows when it was shipped. It knows what happened. It can suggest new products to them. It can do all those things. And, if somebody wants to talk to a human, press 0 to talk to a human is going to be the 5 people left in the call center out of the 800 who used to work there.
There's so many topics related to this that are just avenues that I just want to deep dive on, but I definitely want to be respectful of your time. I do want to touch on the show. What made you, or what inspired you to start a podcast?
I started my podcast 7 years ago now. So it's been on for a while. Originally, I think the idea was going to be, let's get some of our clients, we'll get them on, we'll kind of have a local show, we'll talk about local business and stuff. And since we're a digital marketing company, we're going to call it Digital Marketing Masters, and then we're going to do that thing. We used to record in a music studio for a music school. And because music schools have all this unused recording studio time because all of their students are at high school or whatever, right? Or middle school. So they all come in at night. So during the day, during the week, there's nobody there. So you can rent it out super cheap. It's good.
Good tip.
Good tip. So yeah, we had a professional studio. We could sit everybody around the table live with microphones and everything. And what I found out was all the guests that I have on the show, we'd make, introductions and we talk and we laugh and whatever, right? And then when they had somebody who had a problem that our company could fix, they would refer them to us. And I was like, well, and also I got to talk to them and ask them questions and learn stuff. So the idea was, I'm not going to use this to try and find clients in the audience anymore. I'm going to have people on the show who I find interesting that I want to learn from. And as soon as that happens, those people then, some of them will refer other people to our business so we can make money doing it.
Yeah.
So now I don't need sponsors. I don't need to have commercials. You know, I can just do my podcast whenever I want. And when COVID came, we started doing it remotely, and we've done it remote ever since.
What's been the biggest aha for you hosting the show? And have you noticed anything in terms of like your ability to have these conversations with people, your ability to engage with people as a host? Did that skill set develop over time?
Oh, yeah. I don't even think I'm that good at it now, but I was terrible at it before. It's like anything, right? If you spend the time to do something on a regular basis and you get incrementally better at it, you keep at it and you are so much better at it than you were before, right? It took 2 years to write and edit my first book. It took about 150 days to write Will AI Take My Job Too, including research.
Wow.
But also research, thanks AI. So a lot of research was done with AI, and then I would go and look at the articles and stuff, and of course, fact check everything. Yeah, but that's not something that was before. You used to be like, okay, well, if I want to find a study about XYZ, I got my list of 20 places that I go to that, you know, like Pew Research and, you know, Stats Canada or whatever. And then also I'm searching Google, and I got to go look at all the articles, and I got to read everything. And half the articles in Google are trash, right? And half of them are just somebody made up BS, right? And I mean, people complain about AI hallucinations. Have you read the internet? Like, it's full of garbage. Everywhere you go is trash, right? So it's very hard to trust stuff. And now I can say, I only want my AI to go and look at actual, you know, academic paper research. And it will return it to me with all the links and everything that I want. So I can go look at each one and I can go read it and make sure that the summary that it gave me matches what the article says. And then I can also double fact check it. I can take the list. I say, summarize this into a list of article names and links. It gives it to me, and I put it in the other AI, and I say, go check all these. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, without getting too deep into it, but I think that a lot of people are limiting themselves to thinking like AI is ChatGPT. Or maybe it's, you know, Grok or Gemini kind of thing. We, at our agency, we use dozens of AI tools on a regular basis. I've probably used a dozen today so far, right?
It reminds me of when people used to think AOL was the internet.
That's right. You know, they just turned off AOL dial-up like a couple months ago.
I did see that. They also shut down
Isn't that crazy?
MTV. Did you see that?
Oh, the old MTV.
There's no more MTV. So all these things that people, a younger generation, would have no idea what we're talking about.
Who knew that if you took all the music off the music channel that nobody would watch it anymore? How weird.
Yeah. A lot of fun memories. Talk to me about SMB Autopilot.
SMB Autopilot is a SaaS product that we've soft launched right now. What it does is it determines if a business has a physical presence or they have a local service area. You know, it could be both, right? Say you're a clinic and people will only drive a certain distance to go to your clinic. And that's technically a service area. What it does is it optimizes for Google's local search, which is like the map box search. So when somebody has an intent to get a service local to them, there are literally hundreds of signals that Google uses to determine who should come up in ranking. Everybody thinks that it's the business, how close I am to it, and how many reviews it has. But just type in any business and you'll see someone who's not ranked number one who has more reviews. So we can just look at it and see that's not true, right? So my first book was called Crush SEO, Learn to Market Your Local Business Online. And I wrote it in 2015.
Wow.
So we've been doing local SEO for about 20 years.
What's the URL?
Since it was even a thing.
What's the URL for that one? Is that?
Don't go read that book. It's 10
No,
years
sorry,
out of date.
SMB Autopilot.
It's smbAutopilot.ai.
Okay, I'll put that.
SMB like small and medium-sized businesses.
Yeah.
So it's smbautoPilot.ai.
And it's primarily for local businesses.
It is specifically for
Okay.
local businesses.
Yeah.
And it is autopilot as you would imagine autopilot on a plane in the movies is.
Yeah.
You sign up, you search for you. Well, you don't even have to sign up. Actually, you go in, you type your business name in, it finds your business, your Google business page.
Yeah.
You say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And then there's a little bit of sign up because we need some contact information and you got to pay us. And then it automatically does everything and you don't have to do it. And it will send you a report every month that has a geographical report where it shows you a 13 by 13 grid of what ranking you are for a certain type of service if the person was standing searching from that location.
Wow.
And that's also based on Google's own data. That's not our data. That's straight from Google.
Yeah.
So Google says if you're standing, 3 miles from your business and your business is a physical therapy clinic and you type in physical therapy in your city and you rank 20th, you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
But if you search it while you're in your office, you're probably first because you're closest.
Sure.
So of course you're first, right? You're sitting in the place. And Google's like, oh, you're already in a physical therapy office. So here's the one you're standing in right now, right? But if you go more than a mile away from your business, that may not be the case. And that's the problem that we solve.
And so it gives them actionable advice on what to do and how to update their website or how to figure.
It will do that if it's a problem.
Okay.
But otherwise, everything it does is automated. And you don't have to do it. You don't have to see it. You don't have to do anything.
Wow.
It goes through, does its checks, and then it does some content-related stuff. It's some backlinking and signal creation stuff. And then it analyzes the report automatically and does it again the next month.
Wow.
And I wouldn't say that it's going to work 100% for everyone, but so far it has never not worked. So it's a service. Basically, we took the service we used to do by hand and like manually, right? That we used to charge $1,250 a month for. And now we have an automated system that does it for $395 a month.
That's amazing. I already have a couple of folks in mind. I'm going to send that link to you.
Sure. Well, send them to me. I'll run a report for you and you can see what it looks like.
Okay. I appreciate that.
And and the cool part is that we wanted to make it like, the idea of the autopilot. You push the autopilot button like you're in a movie, right? They're like, I don't know how to fly a plane. And you push autopilot, like the original airplane movie where the guy inflates and he flies the plane, right?
Dating yourself with that one too.
I know. So, and I don't want to go too long. I know we're a bit over time already, but I talk to small business owners constantly for the last 20 years, right? I've been talking to small business owners. So you know what they want? They don't want to enter their information. They don't want to type in all their customers. They don't want to put in a bunch of crap into a system. They don't want to do any of that stuff. What they want to do is have more people call them and spend more time with their kids.
Yeah.
That's it. Or their hobbies or whatever it is they want to do, right? Joe the mechanic wants to work on his 1940 Mustang. He doesn't want to figure out how to use Google Ads, right?
Amen. Sure.
So all they got to do is sign up. It does the thing. They don't have to do anything. And this is what AI software is going to look like in the future. It's going to get the result that you want without you having to do the thing.
Well, I'm so appreciative that there's folks like you, Matt, who just want to do the right thing by people and do the right thing by business owners. And obviously you're one yourself, but you also understand at the end of the day, especially entrepreneurs, not running like mega global companies, like we're all, trying to put food on the table, spend time with our families, not having to work, 80 hours a week, not having to wake up on Saturday afternoon and thinking about the 3 clients you've got to write proposals for. And I think it's clear, and, just from this conversation and the books you've written and the services you're creating like SMB Autopilot, that you care. And I don't know that you can say that a lot in this day and age about people who are just out to just get the next quick buck. And so I really, want to thank you for like the work you're doing to help business owners, because I think we need a lot more of that.
I appreciate it. And you know what? I think there's a lot more, especially on the business owner side for small businesses, of people who started their business because they wanted to help people. They knew a skill, they knew something, they wanted to help people, they were helping people do it, and somebody started paying them for it.
Yeah.
And they were like, I can make a business out of this.
Yeah.
or they went to school to be a dentist, right?
Yeah.
Or a physical therapist or whatever it is.
Just a couple of questions as we wrap up.
Sure.
What's something you've changed your mind about recently?
I think that the level of complexity that is in modern and upcoming artificial intelligence systems is way deeper than I think that it is. And I've immersed myself in it for, over 5 years, right? I mean, we were working on deep learning stuff before this.
Mhm.
So, and I think that the average person, the gap is widening
Yeah.
at a rate so fast that people are not even going to understand what an AI system is in a year or two compared to, what they use now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's so much changing my mind as much as even myself thinking about how are things going to exponentially grow. It's growing exponentially faster than I expected.
And for you to say
And
that,
I'm the one thinking about it.
yeah, if you're saying that, then that's something to give people pause about.
I think also people underestimate it because they get all this stuff about the AI hype bubble and all this kind of stuff. And that has nothing to do with the capabilities of the systems.
Yeah.
That's about finance.
Yeah. What is the most misunderstood thing about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough question. I think the most misunderstood thing about me is that, and I guess that people don't expect that somebody just wants to help them, right? And, if they lived in our community and they saw us, my wife and I volunteer, and my wife's on the school board and Home and School, it's called. They're raising money to build a new playground for the school
Okay.
because apparently the school board in Nova Scotia does not provide playground equipment, which is a surprise to me.
Yeah.
We work in the local community hall. We support local charities for arts and things like that. And we don't have to,
Yeah.
And people ask me, favors and questions and things all the time. And I'm happy to help if I can.
Yeah. Well, really, again, shout out to Ben for making the connection. Really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Probably could have gone on for another hour or two, just on a lot of topics that are near and dear to my heart as a creative and as a business owner. But I'm going to have all the links to all the books in the show notes. Anywhere else you want to send people to connect with you?
They go to MatthewRouse.com.
Okay.
It's Matthew with 2 T's.
Okay.
And Rouse is Rouse.
Okay.
And that's got books and, interviews and things like that on there. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can see pictures of chickens.
I'll be sure to sign up just
and
for that.
AI stuff.
Yeah.
AI and chickens. That's what you're going to get on my LinkedIn.
Hence the AI chicken wrangler.
That's right.
Well, thanks again, Matt. I really enjoyed this conversation. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Harry. I appreciate you having me on.